Welcome to Set the Captives Free Ministries with evangelist Willie Needham, providing Christ-centered solutions for the bewildered believer. So whether you're a battle-hardened street preacher in need of some advice, or a timid spirit with a heart for the lost who doesn't know where to start, this podcast is for you. So stay tuned and find out what we can do for you. God bless. Hello everybody. I'm glad you could join me for this week's podcast. Today I'm going to be addressing an issue that is definitely trending among the internet and all forms of media, and it is highly controversial and, well, quite sensitive, in fact, and that is the issue of transgenderism and, more broadly, the LGBT movement. You see, it's really caused quite the kerfuffle, not a furfuffle, a kerfuffle. I guess a furfuffle would be a flurry of kerfuffles. So, it's caused quite the furfuffle. Indeed. And sadly, the secular world is just shrugging their shoulders and saying, "What's your problem, Christians?" It reminds me of a time when I was 14 years old, when my classmates were taking turns firing spitwads at me. Of course, I was outraged that I was the target, and they would not relent in any way. And after a while, one of the other kids, who was not involved in any way, shape, or form, just kind of shrugged his shoulders and said, "Come on, Willie, they're only spitwads." It was easy for him to say that, because he wasn't a target, nor was he the one firing it. The point is that the guy who said that to me was very much an example of the secular world. Atheists look at the outrage of the LGBT movement and the situation that's rising with transgenderism, and they're just kind of saying, "What's your problem?" Well, it's actually quite a big problem. It's quite the big problem indeed. See, for the atheist, the LGBT movement poses this massive dilemma. The core value behind any LGBT individual is, "I'm actually supposed to be this way." Now, this is something that I need you guys to listen to very closely, because I've heard this many times from homosexuals and transgenders, was that I was meant to be this way, is what they say. I was created wrong. Those are the words from a homosexual or a transgender. In fact, really, I mean, when you think about it, a transgender, they don't even have to say it word for word. The very act of changing their gender identity is enough in itself to show that they're acknowledging being created and having a purpose of right and wrong. Because for them to say that their identity was wrong to begin with, they're citing a creator, and they're citing right and wrong, and they're citing a purpose in life. So this is why I need you to listen very carefully to that. Because it's terrifying to witness to a homosexual or to a transgender for the normal Christian. Because it's so sensitive of a topic. Because these people are they're very passionate about this, and that they're very touchy about it. And nobody wants to get a lawsuit. Nobody wants to get arrested. Nobody wants to get hit with a purse by some dude. So it's scary. It's scary to witness to a homosexual or to a transgender. And it's also difficult to witness to an atheist. It's intimidating because atheists will come off as intellectual. So really the purpose of this message this week is to pose the LGBT conundrum to the atheist. Because to the atheist, Their existence is accidental, their purpose is without reason, and any form of success is completely meaningless. Sometime last week, I had made an attempt to engage in some dialogue on Twitter with some atheists. And one of them seems like a nice young man. He immediately responded to my question. And my question was simply, what is your basis for reason? And the only thing that he could really say was, it works. And everything else that he said after that was just very redundant, and by saying that the reality in which we create for ourselves, we observe, and it matches reality. Okay. So that is a response from a bona fide atheist on the basis for meaning. It works. That's all they can come up with. So therefore, the statement, I was actually supposed to be something else, is truly laughable to the atheist. Or at least, it should be. And the other half of the LGBT conundrum is a glaringly obvious problem. The identity part of gender identity. You see, the whole issue with gender identity that people are outraged over is the fact that nothing is really required to assert the statement. To where I, Willie Needham, clearly a man, can still dress as a man, practice everything else as a man, anatomically, physiologically, in every other way, but just say that I'm actually a woman, and I have to be treated as such. And if you were to question it, I would have the ability to file a lawsuit against you, and I would win. Despite the overwhelming amount of evidence declaring my actual gender, if I identify in any other way, you legally have to accept it. That's where the transgender conundrum becomes kind of dangerous. And it also becomes a major thorn in the side of atheists. Because if you've ever had a talk with an atheist over the age of the earth, or the credibility of evolution, they will generally attack you and mock you whenever you assert the fact that the earth is not nearly as old as you think it is, and that evolution is a rather silly notion. Even if you can come up with 1,300 scientific citations that are verifiable, even if you come up with that, they just, no, you don't know what you're talking about. But if a 6-foot man, a 6-foot black man, identifies as a 4-foot Chinese woman, they won't question it. It's like, okay, good for you, man. Good for you, ma'am. Sorry. So even if it's glaringly obvious, the atheists won't dare question it. So what does this all have to do with how to deal with them? Well, here's the point when I tie atheism and the LGBT conundrum together. The reason why the secular world shrugs its shoulders at the LGBT movement is the fact that they both have the same motive. Even though the atheist says, I was created by accident, my purpose is non-existent, and any form of success is completely meaningless, and the transgender and homosexuals say I was actually created to be something else, and that I was born a certain way, and that I'm actually intending to be such and such. Even though it seems like they're contradicting each other, they still have the same motive. And that motive is that they hate God. Let me say that again. The motive is that they hate God. First, we're going to look at Romans chapter 1, verse 18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Let me say that again. Who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. And what that means is that they know the truth. They know the truth of God. The atheist knows God exists. But they suppress the truth in unrighteousness. That is how you reconcile the fact that the atheist supports a movement that should be going completely contrary to everything that they believe in. Because they both are suppressing the truth in unrighteousness. Let's take this to Psalm chapter 14, verse 1. Now these are some mighty harsh words, but they're true. It says, "The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none who does good." So let me say that again. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Now, a quick little study on the original language of that. It literally translates into, the fool says in his heart, no God. So it's not even a denial of existence, so much as a rejection. Like if you're sitting at a table in a restaurant and you have a cup of coffee, you're finished with your coffee, and the waiter offers you a refill, you say, no coffee. You're not denying the existence of coffee. You're just rejecting the offer. So that is the motive of the atheist, and that is the motive of the homosexual. It is not so much that God hates homosexuals. It is not so much that God hates atheists. But it is very much that atheists and homosexuals hate God. And it's very interesting when you see groups that are anti-Christian team up together, even though they severely disagree with each other, and they contradict each other even. But they will team up against Christianity. Why? Because they hate God. So Christians, keep this in mind. Keep this in mind, and if you find yourself in a situation where you are having a conversation about the Lord with an atheist, or with a homosexual, or with a transgender, bring up to them the question of their existence. That's all you really got to do. It'll certainly challenge them. So for the atheist, ask them what they feel about a homosexual or a transgender saying that they were meant to be something else. Ask them what they have to say about it. Because chances are, they won't be able to say much. And if they insult you, it means they don't have anything at all to say. Or if you find yourself witnessing to a homosexual or a transgender, ask them if they are an atheist. Because if they say they're an atheist, and then they say that they were meant to be something else, well, you kind of have a bit of a contradiction with your own beliefs. So keep this in mind, because every human being who is alive is capable of being saved. Do not write off any atheist friends or loved ones. Do not write off any homosexuals who you know. They are to be loved by us. We do not have to accept them for who they are. We have to accept them for the fact that Christ died for them. And because Christ died for them just as much as he died for us, we need to show them grace, and we need to share the gospel with them in love. It's a tough thing. Because for the atheist, they don't want it. They've made it very clear. They don't want to believe anything. But the fact is, they come up empty with everything else. And for the homosexual, they don't want it. Even though they know that they need it, they don't want it. It's a really sad state. But I do hope that this has been a blessing, and I do pray that this can be something that can further edify you. And as always, this is Willie Needham, reminding you to fight until the bell rings. Thank you for listening to the Set the Captives Free Ministries weekly podcast. For more information on the ministry, or about Willie Needham, give us a call at 855-507-0379, or saltoftheoats@gmail.com. To write to us or send a donation by mail, our address is P.O. Box 467, Modena, New York, 12548. And let your conversation always be full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. God bless.